Great. So lots of people here. Hello, everybody. Okay, we'll get started here in a second. I have a question. This is from Melissa. Is this a home-based business that you can use under your own business name, or are we carrying the company name? So, hi, Melissa. No, you would start your own company name. So, and I talk about that in my program, but you want to think of a good business name, and then you want to get the domain name, and then you want to get a logo, and you want to get a website, all your own. You would own all of that, so it would be your business. It wouldn't be Bookkeeping Life's business. What I do is I teach people how to do all those pieces. So how to properly brand um, your business, which is getting the name, getting a nice name. What is a nice name? Um, and how to market that name. So it all starts with the branding, and then the advertising piece, and those two together equal clients. I preach that all the time. Really good branding plus really good advertising equals clients. And there's a lot of pieces to each of those, but that's really what it is. It would be your own business, that you select the name, and you run with it. But I'm here and Bookkeeping Life is here to help you do that. So how many mothers are out there? Thanks, Francesca. I appreciate that. So some of you here have, oh, good. Some of you here, great, lots of mothers here. Hopefully it's nice and sunny and beautiful this weekend for you. You can't see it, I don't think, but it's raining here in Southern California, and chilly. So a dog mother. I have 2 dogs, so I'm a dog dad. Nice. So does anybody have any questions about how to start their own business? If you've seen any of my videos, do you have any questions relating to those videos? And I can get into some of that stuff. Otherwise, I can just pick a topic and start rambling on. Or I can go get my puppy. We got a new puppy, and I can show you that. If you want to learn something, I can teach you something. Otherwise, I can show you some. I got plenty. So until somebody asks another question, so here we go. Let's see. I'm having trouble getting started. I'm afraid. This is from Francesca. I'm afraid I'll get too much business and not be able to handle it. Okay, this is a really good question. Okay, you can easily control how much business you get. So you work full time. Yeah. So you can easily just start with one client, and how you so you're going to talk to any potential client. It's not that they're just going to show up, drop their stuff off, and you have to do it. How it works is you get a call or an email from somebody, and you get to field them out. You get to ask them questions. You get to get a good understanding what their business is like, the complexity of their business, how much work it would take you to do the job, and then from there you can decide if you want to take that client or not. So you do not have to take, and I do not recommend you take every client that comes your way. I turn down clients all the time, and even, it sounds crazy, but during tax season, because it gets really crazy, there's a period of time where I stop even answering the phone. For one, 50% of the calls are solicitors, and then the other thing is I really just don't have the time. So you absolutely have control over dialing it as fast as you want. And I recommend in the beginning that you start with just one client. Actually, I start with doing your own books first, and then you get one client. You do your own book. If you're new to bookkeeping, that is, if you're new to bookkeeping and QuickBooks, I recommend you start with your own books, and then just you can do your family's books in QuickBooks, and that's really helpful for your family budget and stuff like that. But you get familiar with QuickBooks, you get more comfortable with it, so that when you talk to a customer, a potential customer, you are relaxed, you're more sure of yourself. But then you just start with one customer, and then you work that one customer. And if you're not comfortable taking on a second one, don't do it. You can still talk to them, and then if they don't seem like a good fit, you can simply say, well, at this time I am not taking on any new clients, but maybe if you want to try, if you don't have any luck finding somebody, maybe try back in a month, something like that. Or you can contact them in a month and say, you know what, I had an opening and I can take on another client now if you're still needing somebody. So you can absolutely control how many clients, and you will control it. It'll never be a situation where work piles up on you that you don't expect, because you control when you get a new client. You can't control, you can't control how many people are knocking at your door, although you can through advertising, proper branding and advertising. But you can control how many you take on. So that's the really good thing about it. So I always talk about dialing it, and filling your plate. So if you have a full-time job or a part-time job, or looking to do this full-time, you can absolutely just start with one client. And if you have a full-time job and you have an hour or two on the weekend or at night and you want to work on a client, it's perfect. You just get one client, fill that spot. You realize you get more efficient with that client. So let's say you had 2 hours on the weekend that you could devote to this. You get one client to fill that space. Well, what happens is you get more efficient over time. So the amount of time it took you to do that one client would decrease over time. So instead of saying taking you 2 hours on the weekend to do one client, you'll get more efficient with QuickBooks and just your understanding of bookkeeping to where you can do 2 clients in that same amount of time. So you're making double the money in the same amount of time. So that it's really a great industry to be able to dial that, to fill your plate as much as you want. You can dial it. As you get more efficient, you get more clients, and do more work in the same amount of time. And that's what's really good about the amount of money you can make too, is whatever you're making in the beginning is just the start. You're going to get to where you can do 3 times, 4 times as much in the same amount of time as when you start out. So that hopefully answers your question, Francesca. If not, let me know. All right, Brenda. Hi, Brenda. Is it best to use QuickBooks Desktop or QuickBooks Online or both? So just starting out, I recommend using, unless you already have it for some reason, unless you already have the desktop version for some reason, you don't need to get it. I recommend starting with QuickBooks Online. If you were to ask me this question 10 years ago, I would have said desktop. But over the years, the online version has gotten way better. The internet's gotten more robust. They've devoted a lot more energy into the online version, and it's gotten a lot better. I still personally, I think it's probably just because I came from the desktop version. I still prefer the desktop version. It seems faster to me, and I'm more proficient in it than I am on the online version. But just if I were starting out today, I would start on the online version and I would master that. I wouldn't even spend any time on the desktop version until I had to, which would be further down the line, where you have clients where you choose to take clients that use the desktop version, and you are not the only one in those books. So there are times where somebody will ask me to reconcile their books or clean up some books or do 2 years of data entry into their QuickBooks. and they're using desktop version. So then I obviously need the desktop version. I get the desktop version every year because I have a handful of clients that use the desktop version. But just starting out, I highly recommend that you start with the online version, and it's free. QuickBooks Online for accountants is free. You can get a free account, and in that free account, you can do your own books for free. And then any client, it has a client section where as you get clients will invite you to their books. And then that client will pop up in your client list in your QuickBooks Online version. And so you'll have your QuickBooks Online for your own business because you want to keep track of your own bookkeeping. And then you'll have a list of your own QuickBooks Online clients that you can click on at any time and go into their books. So it's super, super handy. You don't have to be passing files back and forth to each other or doing a remote type of situation. So extremely handy, and that's where it seems like they're voting. The Intuit team, who makes QuickBooks, is devoting a lot more energy into the online version. That's where everything's going. They seem to be trying to push us away from the desktop version. Every year when I go to buy it, it seems to be harder and harder to find, just to be able to buy it. So on their website. So desktop or online version, definitely to start, master it, get really good at it. So many businesses use it by far over any other software. So you will have endless supply of potential clients if you use the online version. And then when you market yourself, that's what you market. You market that you're very efficient, proficient with the QuickBooks Online version. So Brenda, I hope that answers your question. The Scream. Does bookkeeping normally follow the cash method or the accrual method? Okay, well, that all depends on the company, your client. So your client may be on the accrual or on the cash, and in QuickBooks, it's just the click of an option on all of your reports, and also in your settings, you can just choose cash or accrual. So it's I would say the majority of my clients are on cash basis, but that completely change. It's all dictated by your client. So you might have clients that are on accrual or cash, and it really doesn't. It does change the way you do some things, but on the basic level, it doesn't. So I wouldn't worry about that question too much. That really comes down to just a couple types of entries that you might have to make, and clicking the appropriate button when you're running reports for your client. Francesca, you got your first client. That's awesome. You should email me and or post it on the Facebook page how that happened and your thoughts and all that. That'd be really beneficial for us all to see. Trenchy, I hope I'm saying that right. My client would like to use Receipt Bank. Which is better, Receipt Bank or I don't know. I don't know the difference between those two, so I wouldn't be able to answer that. I'm sorry. Okay, Scream. All right. Any other questions? Does anybody have? So so how many people that are here? Looks like there's 20 people here, so that's awesome. How many people here are already have their bookkeeping business up and running? And then how many people haven't started yet? And then if you already started your bookkeeping business, How many clients do you have, just roughly? I'd love to see that. Okay. Reem hasn't started yet. Brenda hasn't started yet. Carrie, I do, just working on getting clients. Cool. So while people are answering that, okay, haven't started. Melissa, haven't started yet. Okay, so those that are saying they haven't started yet, what is the number one reason why you haven't started yet? And dig deep on that one. Okay. Because and you can tell me if this applies to you. I typically, when people don't start something, let's see, I have a small tax business. Okay. Okay. No, Melissa, no, you don't. That because I teach you how to do that, how to start the business, how to choose a good name, how to get a domain name, how to get a website. I teach all of that and what's worked for me. Um, so no, actually, it's better that if you, I wouldn't say it's better, but you're an ideal student if you take my course and you haven't started yet. Okay, so let me read these real quick so I don't talk about something that's irrelevant. Okay, how to advertise. Okay, Trisha, I will come back to that. Cool. Yep, getting that first client. It can be scary, but it doesn't need to be. We worry about so many things that really don't matter, don't we? I do it. I'm doing it today because I have a jiu-jitsu competition later today. I've been in quite a few competitions so far. There's no reason to be jittery and afraid. You know, we're afraid of things in life. And it's sad that we let fear dictate whether we do something or don't do something. That's actually why I do the competitions, is because I like to push myself in areas that I'm afraid. And I'm not going to get hurt. It's going to be strenuous, but I'm not going to get hurt. Just like, you guys starting a bookkeeping business and getting your first client, it's nothing that's going to hurt you. You're only going to grow from it. You're only going to learn from it. And that's what I try to preach to people all the time, is that we let fear dictate so many aspects of our day every single day, and I'm guilty of it too. And I have a 7-year-old son, and I try to teach him about that too. Is that we let these fears of the unknown, fears of what could happen, fears of not being in total control all the time, um, dictate what we do, and it really limits us in life. So I really recommend that, one, you come to terms with that, try to realize that that is something that could be what's holding you back, um, and to try something different and new that has a high probability of success and um, living a much better life. And then the risk reward, you got to look at that, but we sometimes ignore it. Is the reward is so great, and the risk really is so little. The risk is what? Facing our fears, being out of control for a little bit, um, getting outside of our comfort zone, out of our box. Um, it's really, really important, no matter what age you are, to constantly be battling that within yourself. Uh, it's the only way to grow and to reach certain levels and certain places that you want to get to in your life. So that's my spiel on that. as I deal with my own battles today. Um, all right, let's get back to, let's see. Okay, I am going to come back to advertising. Do I need to have business started in North? Okay, answer that. I'm in the planning stages, getting everything in place, website, etc. Worry about how I'm going to get my first client. Okay, working nonstop until I got sick last week. Oh, I hope you get better, Screen. Time due to working 2 jobs. Yep, I understand. So Brenda, focus on getting 1 client. That's all. Don't think about, oh, I need to build this business so big that I can drop these other jobs and just think that first level, which is getting that first client, and then everything after that will be different and not even what you expected it to be. So everything, anybody that hasn't had contact with the first client yet, put aside whatever you expect it to be. It's not going to be like that. It's just a conversation with a human being, and they have a need for somebody that does what you're, what you're doing, going to be doing. Um, let's see. So yeah, I understand. Like time. But here's the thing with a client is, if it's a small client, you can do a small client in 1 hour per month. I have clients that it takes me less than an hour to do their books every month. So and even the bigger ones, because I've really tailored my business to these smaller clients that don't require me to do. I don't do payroll, and that's another thing that I talk about in various videos. But you can totally tailor the type of client that you get, that you accept to be these. You can have bigger clients. Some people prefer to have a client that takes 10 hours per week of their time, but there's all these mom and pop places, where they pay their own bills, and they handle all the stuff themselves, but they just don't take their information from their bank and credit cards and put it into QuickBooks. Those types of clients don't take much time at all on a monthly basis. So you can knock out a client easily in an hour. Once you get efficient with QuickBooks, you can knock out a client really easily in an hour or less. I have some clients that takes 20 minutes for a month, because they just have very few transactions per month. So, and I'm just taking the transaction, put them into QuickBooks, coding them correctly. So even if you're super, super busy, you can probably find time for just 1 client and just start there. That's a perfect place to start. You get your feet wet, start learning QuickBooks. You learn so much from that 1 client, and then that next client's easier. So even if you're super, super busy, you can probably squeeze in 1 client. All right. Okay, so the thing about, I'm in the stage of becoming social. Good. So Scream, I'm not going to talk about like bookkeeping itself, like how low you can report taxable income. But so any like bookkeeping questions or things like that, there's so many variables to those types of questions that I could spend a lot of time on just 1 question. Those are best for the Facebook page. So if you could post any questions you have on the Facebook page like that, I'll get those answered. And somebody else might want to chime in and answer them as well. And they're beneficial for other people to see. So any like bookkeeping questions, please post those on the Facebook page. Today I want to focus on starting and growing the actual bookkeeping business instead of the meat and potatoes of bookkeeping. Great. Yeah, fear of failing. You won't fail. So even if, I'm going to preach about this again, even if even if you try this and you do not get a client, which if you do what I recommend you do, and it's very systematic what I recommend, if you don't cut any of those corners, you will get clients. It's this, that's the way it is. If there's like 1% that chance that you don't get clients, you will have learned so much by doing all of those steps that you will carry that knowledge forward in your life. You're not going to go broke. You're not. It's not like buying a boat and then you don't use it and it's depreciated so much. You take a huge loss on it. It's not like that. You're learning. You're one of the things that you're learning is how to be an entrepreneur. So even if, let's say, worst case scenario, you put a lot of time and effort into this and you don't get a single client, which I think is impossible, you will still have learned so much about yourself, on how to start your own business, how to become an entrepreneur, how to get out of the rat race, how to drop one of your jobs, how to you'll get a taste of so many different things that maybe it's a totally different industry that you want to do a year from now. You'll already know a lot of how to get that thing started. So maybe you get into this and then you realize it's not for you, and that's great. That's okay. You've learned so much. You did not lose. You did not fail. You may have just made a decision along the way that this isn't for you. I think I think there is no failing possible. I think it's just whether it's a choice, whether or not you want to put your efforts and determination into it enough to succeed. So, and if you decide that you don't want to do that, then you still will have gained so much from the process that you can carry that information to the rest of your life. Have you seen what rates students can charge with no experience in relatively low cost of living areas, Midwest? Yep. Based on Google searches, yep, yep. I think that's right in there, $30 to $50 an hour. So I live in Southern California now, but I'm born and raised in Central Illinois, so I'm well familiar with the Midwest and Farmville. So I have a good perspective on all of that, and I know that it's very different than around here. So, but 30 to 50, yeah, that is right in there on. That's the lower end of the scale for lower cost of living areas. And then where I am, it's way up there. So it just depends. It does depend on where you live and the cost of living there, because it really depends on how much are people paying for property taxes, their homes, rent, that kind of thing. Because really, really everything else in life is pretty much the same wherever you go. Food is a little different, but the big players are property taxes, rent. What are people paying for rent? So that's the cost of living that I'm referring to. Places with a higher rent and higher property taxes for those that own, in those areas you can charge more if it's really inexpensive. I had a home in Illinois that I bought and sold it for around $90,000, and it was a big home, upstairs, downstairs, wood floors. $90,000. You can't buy where I live now. You can't buy anything. You can't buy a mobile home for $90,000. So, and they don't have yards here. So it's very, very different world where I live now. But the cost of living here is crazy compared to the Midwest. So you can charge a lot more in areas like this compared to, the Midwest or something like that. So yeah, but 30 to 50 starting out is right in there. I think that's good research. Francesca, I got my first client from an ad on Craigslist. Good. Yep. Good. Very good. Yeah, Craigslist is one of the areas that getting back to the advertising question, advertising, and I put a video out recently on this, you might have seen it. Advert, Advertising, there's lots of different ways to do it, but you can pay money to do it, but I prefer the free way, or pretty much free way. And I talk about Craigslist, Yelp for businesses, and also networking. So Craigslist used to be free forever until recently. Now it's $5 a post, and those posts last for 30 days. So you can get your brand. First, I recommend getting your brand up and running, because you're going to need a logo and a website so that you're more attractive on Craigslist. So branding first, then advertising. But for the advertising, Craigslist is virtually free, $5 a post and you want to go to your Craigslist in your area, and then under the and then I'll talk about something else too. But for actually making your post in your area, under financial services, under the services section, under financial, and then post your post up there. It'll cost you $5, and it'll remain there for 30 days. And you could do like one a week, and that way you have over time you'll have 4 of them up there on a rotating basis, and you can change them up a little bit just kind of to see which ones work better. But that way you're on there several times. But there are other people doing it too. So you're going to, like I said, want to make sure your branding piece is nice. That's why I highly emphasize really good branding, or really good logo. It doesn't have to be a big website, but just a nice one-page website is good. And I talk about all that in my program. But so that's the first piece. The second piece of branding I preach is Yelp for businesses. So not just your normal Yelp page, but Yelp for businesses. And then you can claim your own business. So you can enter your own business. It's free to do. And you can put, even if you work out of your home office, you can use your home office address, or you can get a PO box. Either way is fine. And whatever you feel most comfortable with. And then people will find you on Yelp. So if they're in whatever city you're in, they type in your city bookkeeping in Yelp, you will come up. And then over time, you'll start getting reviews. Hopefully those are 5-star reviews. And then it's like a snowball effect. You'll start popping up towards the top with good reviews, and people will call you more and more often. And one thing to note about that is Yelp will they will call you constantly, and email you, trying to get you to buy their paid advertising, which is when you'll pop up on other pages. I've never paid for Yelp advertising, and I've gotten a lot of business from Yelp. So you do not need to pay Yelp any money to advertise on their site. You're just, by claiming your business, you're on there. You will pop up when people search your area, and you do not need to pay them the money, but they will hound you. Just be polite and say no thanks, and then block their number so they can't call you anymore. And then, so that's 1 and 2, Craigslist and Yelp for businesses. The third one is like networking. So networking, you can network as far as joining networking groups. Those can cost some money, but people do get really good results out of those, because they only allow one person from each industry to be in there. So there's going to be somebody that in real estate, there's going to be an insurance person, there's going to be maybe a CPA in there, but they will only allow one bookkeeper in there. So you'll have to find a group that doesn't have a bookkeeper yet, and then you can they'll let you in. So that's one form of networking. That never worked for me, just because I didn't like that type of thing. They seem to be I like working for myself. So, and that includes being where I want to be when I want to be there. and being somewhere under fluorescent lights all dressed up at 7 a.m. is not where I want to be. So I network, and they do have some at lunch, over lunch times and stuff like that, but I want to be somewhere else then too. So those never really worked for me. But I do know people that have used those types of networking groups and they do really, really well. So if that's your thing, you can do really well with that type of networking group. And then but the other type of networking that I'm referring to is really just getting out there. Start. The beautiful thing about working for yourself is you get to um, have time. It's all about freedom. It's for freedom. You don't have to sit in rush hour traffic. Um, you don't have to be somewhere at a certain time for a boss. It's the freedom. So once you start having a little bit of freedom, start getting hobbies, developing your hobbies. If you've been unable to pull the trigger on doing some hobbies, whatever you're into, start joining clubs. That's where you're going to meet lots of people. It's a great outlet for you to start enjoying your life. And through that process, you're going to meet a lot of people. They're going to ask you what you do, and you tell them you're a bookkeeper, and then you'll be surprised what happens when you start building up a network of friends, social life. So that's what I also mean by networking. So Craigslist for the advertising, try Craigslist, Yelp for businesses, and getting out there with your men, mental bookkeeper hat on. If you take the plunge and say I'm a bookkeeper now, so just start carrying yourself like that. People ask you what you do, that's what you do, and you'll be surprised what happens from that. Okay, I was trying to say. Let's see. I hope so, Carrie. I hope that answered that to some degree. Best places to search out and find clients. Yeah. And then I want to say this too about Craigslist is you can look in the section where companies are looking for bookkeepers too. Where an actual company is posting that they need a bookkeeper. A lot of times too, this is what I did when I was trying to fill my plate too. Um, I would contact companies that needed a part-time bookkeeper, and a lot of times business owners don't realize that they can outsource their bookkeeping. They think they need to bring somebody in, and that person needs to come in for X amount of hours per week to do their books. And a lot of times they don't realize the power of QuickBooks Online, that you can do. And you may even want to do that too. I did that for a lot of years. I would go to a client and work on their books there. I don't do that anymore, but I did for a lot of years, and that's a good thing too. It's a good way to build up that type of experience. So there's many different ways of doing bookkeeping. You can do them and never leave your desk at home, and then there's also you can have clients that you go visit and do their books at their location. So you can look for part-time bookkeeping jobs there. In fact, when I first moved to California in 2004, I that's the first thing I did is I found a client that needed a part-time bookkeeper, and I was still an independent contractor. I went to their location uh, 20 hours a week. And so that was my first client, and I hated it because because it's 20 hours a week on location. But it it was a stepping stone. You got to be willing in the beginning to kind of do things that aren't ideal, but you know where you want to go, and that's really important. That you know that it's not forever. It's a temporary thing. It's a temporary client, temporary job, but it's a really good way to get that type of experience. Every client is a little different, so you're learning different industries, and so for a period of quite a few months, I did that until I was. And while I had that client, I was pulling in these other clients, and then eventually I had enough other clients that where I could drop that client because that was one I had to go to for 20 hours a week. I could drop that one, and then to keep filling up my plate with clients that I preferred more. Uh, So that's a really good way to do it. You can look for people looking for a part-time bookkeeper. um, yeah. So I think, hi Martin. Yeah, so I do like niches with bookkeeping. In the beginning, I would start more broad. I wouldn't start with just like carpenters or real estate agents or anything like that. But that is definitely something that you could gravitate towards later. Um, but in a more broad uh, look, I would say service-based companies. So any service-based company, I would look at them as a potential client versus a company that has inventory. Those bookkeeping for companies that have inventory and they want you to do their payroll and stuff like that, those are additional uh, complications and pretty heavy complications to somebody that's just starting out bookkeeping. But a service-based type of client, you can do their books. That their bookkeeping is much simpler. They go out, like I say, a consultant. A consultant goes out. They have income coming in, typically one type of income, and they have certain types of expenses, lots of going out to different areas, travel, automobile, stuff like that. But they really don't have uh, they don't have complicated expenses, and their balance sheet is not a complicated thing. They simply they are that particular, like a real estate agent is another one, a carpenter is another one, where they provide a service to their customers. That's a service-based company, and those are ideal clients to start off with. You can get complicated later. One of the first clients I had, there's been a couple that if I could, well, I wouldn't change anything, but I did make my life more difficult than I needed to. But I took on a restaurant pretty early on. That was really complicated, kept me up at night. And then I had, what was the other one that was really complicated? Oh, a store that sold thousands of different types of knickknacks and stuff. They had a POS system, and I was just scrambling the whole time, trying to figure everything out. Every step along the way, I had to research stuff, figure stuff out. That type of client, I don't recommend taking on unless you just like you're a glutton for punishment, like I must have been. But you do learn a lot faster that way, but it's also pretty rough on yourself. So I would stick with service-based companies to begin with, and later you can branch it off into more difficult types of clients. I hope that answered your question, Martin. Does bookkeeping workload tend to get higher during tax season, or does it tend to be relatively consistent? So that will depend. So year-end stuff, if you're doing bookkeeping on a monthly basis, the actual month-to-month type of bookkeeping is pretty consistent throughout the year. There is some year-end stuff that typically gets done in January, but not a lot. But again, it depends on the business. So it depends on your client. So the types of clients I typically have these days, it doesn't change too much. But I'm sure I could think of instances where their year end is more difficult. But if you're starting, like I recommend, like a service-based companies and stuff like that, your bookkeeping will be very consistent throughout the year, on a monthly basis. So the niche thing, Therese, no, so niches are good. I'm just saying in the beginning, your niche should be service-based companies. So you've got all companies, service-based companies, niches within that service-based company, niches within there's niches all over the place, but I would stick with, in the beginning, I would stick and kind of be broad with service-based companies. Because if you just say, I'm only gonna get clients that are carpenters, well, you may have a difficult time finding, a plate full of carpenters that want your business. So I would start a little wider, and then over time narrow it down to industries that you really enjoy working with. And I do think niches are a good idea. But when you're just starting out trying to get any client, I wouldn't be passing up another service-based company for that one real estate agent or something like that. The best way to explain that a company can outsource. Oh, well, hi, Carrie. Um, so when you talk to them, you can find out the first thing you do when you talk to a potential client is ask them what they're currently doing. So unless it's a new business and they have no bookkeeping, which is very, very common, one of the things you need to find out is and one of the first questions I ask them is, what are they currently doing with their book? Do they currently have books? If the answer is no, okay. When did the business start? And, so that you get an idea when you would be starting their books. And there's different things to that. But if they already have bookkeeping, where was I going with that? Let's see, where was I? Oh yeah, a company can outsource. So yeah, if you're talking to them and they say, if they need somebody, they think, well, here's another thing too. They might have come off of having an employee that works 10 hours a week to do their books. Well, I know I was an employee, and I know that a lot of people, they may work a 40-hour work week, but they're actually putting in maybe 20 hours of work or something. So like if they had somebody doing their books and they were paying them for 10 hours of work, how many hours of work did they actually do? So you can explain to them that, find out what their needs are. If they think they need somebody for 10 hours a week, it's a good chance that they don't. Explain to them that what they can do, you can go in and check out their books, or they can send you their books to take. You want to see their books. That's another thing. But to find out what kind of shape their books are in, if that's the type of thing that you want to take on. But you can explain to them, a lot of business owners don't even understand that you can outsource a bookkeeper. It's a whole different, it never dawned on them. So you can say, have you ever thought about outsourcing your bookkeeping? Then they don't have to have an employee. They don't have to worry about somebody coming in, somebody being late. Explain to them that your books will be done on a monthly basis, like clockwork. And but just feel them, if they're looking for somebody full-time, 40 hours a week, that's probably not the type of client that you want. You want to find somebody that is looking for a part-time bookkeeper, just a few hours a week, and you'll find those too. And those are the good ones. So that, or those are good starting points where you can get that client. Unless you're looking to do like what I did when I first moved to California, which was I got a 20-hour-a-week bookkeeping client, and did that for, I can't remember how many months. But yeah, you just need to explain to them what outsourced bookkeeping looks like, and that you can do it from home. You can use QuickBooks Online if they don't know what that is, and that might be more. See, the thing is there's so many different types of businesses that you can really define what it is you want, and then you find the companies that fall into that box. Um, so if you don't want to go on site, you don't have to go on site. If you don't mind going on site, then then that opens things up, for that. So there's a lot of companies will say, well, we want somebody to come in. We really want somebody to be here, and say, okay, well, I'm not doing that anymore. Or that's not part of my service. And they'll say, okay, and wish them the best. Um, let's see here. Yeah. Yeah. If you know that trade of restaurants, or if you come from an industry, not as the bookkeeper, but as a different type of worker in that industry, and that industry, that is a good that could be a good niche to focus on, because you understand the industry already. You might be new to bookkeeping, but you understand the industry, like restaurant. Okay. Hi, Lily. What percentage of your annual income is from bookkeeping versus tax prep? So, well, what my answer is it really irrelevant. I'll tell you, it's about one third bookkeeping, 2/3 tax. Um, but that's just the way I've developed things and the choices that I've made. Um, you can, depending on where you're at, you can make a killing in bookkeeping alone. And I know a lot of bookkeepers that they don't touch taxes. They actually send their tax clients to me. So for me, it's just kind of developed that way. And but it could be, like I said, I know very successful bookkeepers that don't touch tax. They have no desire. They hate tax. They hate it with a passion. They don't want to touch it. So you can really dial. That's another thing. You can dial that however you want. There's a lot of money in both. There's a lot of money in bookkeeping and a lot of money in tax. The thing about tax is it comes in like a flood, January to April, and then during the extension season, September, October, there's another big bump there. So if you like that type of thing, then tax is a good thing. Bookkeeping is more consistent throughout the year. It's both are good. To do both is good. To do one, just doing tax is good. Just doing bookkeeping is good. So you can't lose either way. The good thing about those industries is every single business out there needs a bookkeeper. So there's constant flow of potential customers. There's new businesses starting every single day. Every single one of those needs a bookkeeper. There's businesses dying every day. So there's constant churn of new businesses all the time needing bookkeepers. And tax affects everybody. Every single person, every single business has to do taxes. So that's why these industries are so beneficial to people that do them. Let's see here. So the best place to get trained on QuickBooks. Hi, Brenda. So here's some really cool news. So I started BookkeepingLife last year, and I was teaching everybody how to start and grow their bookkeeping business, which I still do. The piece that was missing was the actual QuickBooks bookkeeping training, the actual, how to do bookkeeping, how to do QuickBooks. My students up until recently have been those that either are learning QuickBooks and bookkeeping on their own in some way, or already had that experience. Well, the good news is that now BookkeepingLife is offering that as an option. We have I've partnered up with a really great QuickBooks online teacher, and he's got a program that we're using as part of our program. and to teach QuickBooks and the bookkeeping bookkeeping and QuickBooks at the same time. So you're looking at the best place to get that training. So you can, if you want to email me or talk to me offline, I can tell you what that's all about. I'm happy to. But yeah, if you don't know bookkeeping, you don't know QuickBooks, we are offering a course on that. And it's like 50 some videos, online self-study, and it's really good. So I'm really proud of that, and that we're offering that, because we really had a gap on that with expecting people to either learn that on their own or they are to come in with that information. But yeah, you can email me at steve@bookkeepinglife.com or message me and we can chat about that. Okay. Thanks, Carrie. Lily, how do I charge a bookkeeping client? So so in my program, I do have a video on this, but I'll happily discuss it now. So when I first started out, and this isn't like a rule, you have to fill it out yourself. But I think when people are first starting out, to charge by the hour, there's a few reasons why I got away from charging by the hour. I did start that in the beginning. For a lot of years, I was charging by the hour. One, you have to keep track of your time, pain in the butt. Two, because a lot of times, you're bouncing around, you get up, do something, go do something. You have to keep track of your time. That's a pain. The other thing is and that's just one small aspect of it. The other thing is that what one person can do in an hour is completely different than what another person can do in an hour. So if that's another thing you should remember when you're talking to a potential client, is that if they say, well, I'm paying my current bookkeeper $50 an hour, what is your rate? What I explain to them, what my rate is that it depends, how much is getting done in that hour. It's like if I had to give an hourly rate, it's way more than $50 an hour, but I don't do that. I charge a flat rate. Even big projects, like if it's a cleanup project. So if I get a new bookkeeping client, they haven't had their books done for a year, so there's a year's worth of catch up, and then it's going to be ongoing. What I'll do is I'll give them a flat rate for that period of time that to catch up from they started a business last year, they have no books, they need to get it caught up, and then ongoing bookkeeping. I give them a flat fee for that catch up period. I say, from January of last year till the end of last month, it would be this much, and then going forward it would be this much, which is again another flat rate, because people don't understand. There's so many reasons not to do, in my opinion, not to do the hourly rate, and that's clients, if they're about to hire you to do their services, they want to know, they like to know how much they're going to pay every month. They're going to say it's going to be $200 a month. So they know every month it's going to be $200. It's not going to be this question mark. Some months it's $125. Another month it's $500. They have that shock when they open up your invoice. You do not want that. And then if it's low one month, then they wonder why it is low that month. Why can't it be that low every month? So you just want to eliminate any problems. And also the client likes to know how much they're paying each month. It's really easy for you to give a quote like that. You don't have to say, well, I'm guessing it's going to take this many hours, and so some months it's going to take you a little longer to earn that $200, and some months it's going to be a shorter amount of time to make that $200. They may have a lot of transactions one month and not so many the next month, but over time it averages out. And then if you get further down the road, 6 months down the road, and you're thinking to yourself, I don't think I'm charging this client enough after seeing how many hours I'm spending on this client on a given month. You talk to them, just be honest with them. Talk to them, say, I wanted to give this some time, but I'm realizing that I'm really not, the amount of time that I'm putting onto your account, I am not charging enough. I need to be charging this amount instead of this amount. Just wanted to let you know, get your thoughts on it. Most businesses understand, unless you're saying going from $2,000 a month to $1,000 a month. They're gonna totally understand if it's you're saying, I've been charging $200 a month, but the amount of time that really it's more accurate if I charge $300 a month or $250, and that adds up over. You multiply that by 12 months, it adds up. It's another vacation you can go on, something like that. So that's the kind of the hourly versus flat fee. I like the flat fee, but there's nothing wrong with the hourly if that works for you. No. Scream. Do clients ever ask about your education? How many know I'm a CPA? They probably do know I'm a CPA because it's on my website. But no, I know other bookkeepers that don't have college degrees. They're not CPAs. It's not a question that gets asked from my experience. People, if you're putting yourself out there as a bookkeeper, they assume you are a bookkeeper. They don't say, "Oh, where'd you go to school?" Because that stuff was pretty meaningless to them, anyways. And most of them, I've had actually a negative reaction to being a CPA as a bookkeeper because they think I'm will charge them too much, kind of CPA prices to do bookkeeping. So I've had that discussion with a lot of potential clients. Is, oh, well, do you have somebody in your office that does the bookkeeping for you? Assuming that I'm a CPA and I don't do the bookkeeping, but I say, no, I do it. And so actually being a CPA could, keep people from contacting you because they think you charge too much. And I never get the question about education, and I just don't think it gets asked. You think about it. When you hire somebody, do you ask them what their education is? If you're, if you're an employer, you're going to look at the resume and stuff like that. But if you're just outsourcing something to somebody, let's say you need a graphic designer, you hire them assuming they know how to do graphic design, and you'll find out. And that's another thing I tell potential clients is, and there's I haven't had it today, but a common question I get is contracts. Do you have contracts? Do you use contracts? I say no. I do not. I tell any potential client that I have that asks about that, I say no. As long as you're happy working with me and I'm happy working with you, we'll do that. It's just a month-to-month thing. I'm not going anywhere. I'll be here as long as we're happy working together. We will, and they think that. So, so I wouldn't worry about having to explain your education. You can say you've been working with QuickBooks. If they ask, you say I've been working with QuickBooks for X amount of time. I'm very efficient at it. My work will stand for itself. So I wouldn't worry about getting asked that question. A lot of these things are a fear of the unknown and fear of, trust me, I have a jiu-jitsu competition today. I have a lot of, what if this happens? What if this happens? I'll go here. If he goes here, I'll go here. And that's very, very normal, but we don't let that stop us from doing what we need to do. So don't worry about the questions that you're going to be asked. What's the worst thing that can happen? Like for me, the worst thing that can happen today is I say tap, and then it's over, right? So the worst thing that can happen on a phone call or an email is perfect because you have time to think it through, but a phone call, worst thing that can happen is the phone call doesn't go well. It's over. You can move on with your life, but that probably won't happen. So. Lily, do you charge per bank account? I heard people charging based on revenue too. So I have a really non-scientific approach, more of an artsy approach to giving people quotes. is if I'm on the phone with them, one of the questions I do ask is, how many bank accounts do you have? How many credit cards do you have? The business. And they'll reply, whatever the answer is. And so if it's a lot, if it's one bank account and 2 credit cards, something like that, then I say, it depends on the mood I'm in. Sometimes I'll say, well, how many pages is what bank are you with? Because I'm so familiar with bank statements from different banks. Like if they say Bank of America and they say it's X amount, and I say, how many pages is it? They say it's 15 pages every month. Well, that tells me that they have a lot of transactions. If they tell me it's 6 pages, I know how many pages actually have transactions on them. So I can get, same thing with credit cards. So I can get a really good understanding of how many transactions they have on a given month. It's really, for me, it's the amount of transactions they have on a given month. Because when you're talking about, if you're talking about a big corporation, which you're not, that's not your client, they have in-house accountants, in-house bookkeepers. We're talking smaller companies, more mom and pop type places. And really you're taking the transactions that they have and putting them into QuickBooks. So that's one aspect of bookkeeping. But I get a really good sense of the amount of work a client's going to be by the number of transactions they have. So I'll either ask them that question about how many pages long their statements are, or if I want to dig a little deeper, I'll ask them to send me a typical month's worth of statements. So I'll ask them, can you email me a PDF of your most recent bank account and credit card statements for the business? And they'll send them over, and I'll take a look at them, scroll through them, and give them a quote. But if they want to quote like over the phone, I'll typically say, well, based upon what you're saying, it's probably going to be $200 a month. But once I see everything, I'll be able to firm that up, or I'll talk to you before I start any work. Once you send everything over, I'll take a look at it, and then I'll communicate with you before I start the work, just to make sure that we're in agreement. What great questions we're having today. I love this. Yeah, contracts are fine if that's works for you. I'm just telling you what's worked for me. I don't prefer them. So here's the thing about QuickBooks is you don't pay for QuickBooks. It's your client that pays for QuickBooks Online. So a QuickBooks Online for accountants is free. Hi, this is for Edward. Thanks for the question. QuickBooks for accountants is free, and then it's your client that's paying the $30-some a month or whatever it is for their QuickBooks. So they're paying for the QuickBooks. You're not paying for it, and they give you access to their QuickBooks. If it's a company that wants you to set it up and do the whole thing, and then you just add whatever fee you want onto your monthly fee. So I would never be worried about how much QuickBooks is costing, QuickBooks Online, because it's really the client that carries that burden. Security. So yeah, securities, some people are concerned about it and some people aren't. I have so many people that send me all kinds of documents with their Social Security, especially during taxes. They send me their tax information just via email, not secured. It's got their Social Security number, all their kids' Social Security numbers on it, date of birth, everything. But I just because they're like that doesn't mean I have to be like that. So what I do password protect documents that I send out, and so Adobe, the Adobe program that I use allows for encryption. You can set the password up. So what I do is if I'm sending them something, I'll password protect it using Adobe. And I also use Dropbox with clients too, where we share a folder. But if I'm sending something like a PDF to somebody via email, um, I also use DocuSend for taxes. But Adobe has a version where you can. I don't know if the free version allows you to password protect or not, because I've just been using the more fancy version of it. But you can use a password, and then I communicate that password to them, not in that email. So I'll text them the password or send them a separate email or talk to them. Most of my clients know I have a system for a password, but so that's what I do take security seriously. Hi, David. Do you need to get an LLC, tax ID, insurance instruction? So you should definitely kind of research locally as far as, well, if you're in the United States, most things are consistent, which is don't form an LLC right out the gate. Make sure that this is something that you are going to like doing, that you're going to be able to devote time to and want to succeed at. I would just be a sole proprietor at first. It doesn't cost anything to do that. You can just use your social security number. So a sole proprietor is a Schedule C on your personal tax return. It's not a separate tax entity. So that's where I would start. Do you need to get an EIN number? Only if somebody asks for you to provide documentation so that they can 1099 you. So you don't want to be giving your social security number out. You can get an EIN number on the IRS website for free, all online. So if you go to irs.gov, type in EIN, you can apply for an EIN number online, and you can just and so when you're doing your anytime you need to send out that type of information, you can give them an EIN number instead of your social security number. So you don't have to do that day one, but eventually it's a good idea to do that. And then as a sole proprietor, you can stay a sole proprietor until you realize that you're going to be in this game for a long time, that you're here to stay, that you're going to be profitable. It's a service-based company with very little overhead, which is a really big plus. So you are going to be profitable. It's just at a certain level of profit, does it make sense to form a separate entity like an S corp? A single member LLC, just so everybody knows, is not recognized at the federal level. So if you're going to be a single member LLC, which means an LLC with just it's not recognized at the federal level. So you're still a sole proprietor at the federal level. So I'd stay away from being a single member LLC. But there are costs to having a separate entity. It's a separate tax return. Some states have minimum, like California has a $800 minimum franchise tax that every S corp corporation has to pay. LLC has to pay regardless of if you have profit or not. You can have a loss and still have to pay that $800 every month, or not every month, every year. So there are costs to having a separate entity. So I would wait until you're profitable, fairly profitable, before you would go entertain the idea of doing all that stuff. So yeah, Lily, I encourage my clients, because it's easier for both me and my client, to give me view-only access to their bank and credit card. Most banks and credit cards now, so that way I don't have to every month hound them for statements. So I asked them to do the one-time work of setting me up as a administrator or accountant's view. There's different terms for it, but it's a separate username and password to log into their online banking. and allows me to only see reports and statements and that. And it's really handy because especially with banks, is the check, when they write checks, it'll have the hyperlink on there that you can click on, and it'll pull up the check, and you'd see who the check is written to. So you're going to need that information. So if they're just giving you statements, and it's not the type of bank that shows a printout of the statement of the actual checks, you're going to have to ask them what those checks were. So it's good to have online access to their accounts. And I do find that most people are very open to do that. I do not do payroll. I dabbled in it many years ago and realized that the amount of time that it takes me to do somebody's payroll, I can't charge enough to warrant my time. So I recommend companies outsource. I always recommend people outsource their payroll. There's a great online company called Gusto, Gusto.com. It used to be Zen Payroll, but it's a Gusto for the last couple of years, based out of San Francisco, I think, or somewhere like that. Anyways, it's really, really, really inexpensive for them to do your payroll. It's all done online, and I think it's like $40 a month for to have payroll, and then it's X amount per employee. So it might be like it was cheaper. They bumped it up a little bit, but I think it's around $40 a month for payroll, and then maybe $5, $6, $7 additional per month per employee. So that anybody that's asking for payroll, I don't touch it. There's a lot to it. It can go wrong. It's a nightmare to fix because you're dealing with the IRS and state try to fix things. So I do not touch payroll. So major apps. Well, I don't know exactly what you mean by apps, but the main programs that I use are QuickBooks, Adobe for the PDFs, Words. People send me stuff in Word sometimes. Excel. Excel is a spreadsheet software. Most people know what it is already, but it's extremely, for us accountants, you can tally up numbers really quickly and easily. You can run pivot tables on information, because a lot of times clients will give you information in a messy form, and then you can, and also I use it all the time. Excel is a program I use all the time. Adobe, Word sometimes, just when somebody sends me something in Word, which is not too often. And then the QuickBooks. That's pretty much it. There is a cool app I use on my phone. It's called Tiny Scanner. So if I tell my clients this app all the time. It's called Tiny Scanner, but there's other ones. It doesn't have to be Tiny Scanner, but it allows you to take pictures of pages and of documents, and it turns them into a PDF. And right from there, you can email it to yourself or to your client. So that Tiny Scanner is super. So it's like a portable scanner that turns documents into a PDF. So you can take a picture of 10 different documents, it puts them into one PDF, and you can email it or save it, to the cloud or whatever. Yep. Any other questions? What a great session this has been. Really good questions. If anybody has any other questions after I wrap this up, just email me, steve@bookkeepinglife.com. I'm always checking my emails, and happy to talk with you. And we can jump on a phone call as well. And hopefully this has been beneficial. Thanks, Francesca. But so I got a little sidetracked during tax season. I kind of neglected Bookkeeping Life, so I do apologize to everybody that kind of saw me disappear for a couple months there during tax season. My goal is for that not to happen next tax season, but things get unbelievably crazy. That area back there had stackable folders. It was full. My whole floor is full. It's just crazy and very stressful time of year. But I'm back with a vengeance on Bookkeeping Life, and I'm really here to help you guys as much as I can take that step. And remember, imposter syndrome is a real thing. If you feel the fear of putting yourself out there, anytime you stretch yourself in anything. I coach my sons. I help coach my sons jujitsu class, and I feel like an imposter there. I'm not an imposter. I am where I am on the path that I'm on. We're all on a path. There are people that are way far along on the path, and there are people just starting on the path, and it's okay no matter where you are on the path. It's normal to feel like you're a fraud or imposter or something like that when you're starting something new. And then once you even start it, and then you want to branch out to more complex types of clients and stuff, you're going to feel it then too. But just realize that that's a feeling that your mind is playing tricks on you. And every single person that's anywhere in life had to get there somehow. They didn't just arrive there. They worked hard to get there, and they pushed through the fears and stuff like that. So thank you all so much. Please, if you could subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'm putting out videos like crazy now, so hopefully they'll help you out. And so if you subscribe to the channel, you'll always get updates on when I put a new one out. And again, I'm always here, Steve at bookkeepinglife.com. And then if you have questions that we can't answer via email, I'm always happy to jump on the phone as well, so we can get on a phone call. But I wish you the best. I want you to have that freedom in life to enjoy yourself. Happy Mother's Day to everybody. Thanks for all the awesome questions. What a great session this was. We'll do it again real soon. Okay? Take care. Have a great day. Wish me luck in my jiu-jitsu competition. Happy Mother's Day.